Okay, we finally got some lunch in our studio. Some sandwiches have come in, even as there's much more that is being had at Hyderabad House. But those are the advantages if you're a diplomat or if you're close to Narendra Modi and Barack Obama, because that's where the big lunch is taking place at Hyderabad House at the moment. But we are told the Indian Prime Minister, again in a way, trying to break with tradition, has taken the US President or is about to take the US President on a little walk in the garden at Hyderabad House. They will have a one-on-one.
Now, what we've been told that this, whether it's the Indo-US nuclear deal or high-end military cooperation, there is immense forward movement between India and the United States. The two will walk alone, unstructured, unhindered, just the two of them, just to ensure that everything is smooth in the end, Rajdeep.
Okay. Gaurav, thanks very much. Casey has tried to douse all the expectations of a one-on-one of this kind, resulting in a major breakthrough by saying all leaders do that.
You see,
the only thing is the walk, the possible walk that they will take together.
See, that Mr. Modi is always, wherever Mr. Modi is there, theatre has to be there. And drama, and Obama, they say, is no drama. So no drama meets some theatre. That's inevitable. But the thing is, one-on-one precedes the plenary, the dialogue between the delegations.
Right.
Normally, it's all pre-cooked. The joint statement is ready. If there are sticking points, then you need to pull a leader aside and say that, please pull your hounds back, or etc. So each side, each leader can tell his delegations to stop being dogmatic, compromise wherever it is necessary. So I have a suspicion that this may proceed, because if they are having lunch, there will be hardly any talk there. So there may be one-on-one after lunch.
So you're saying if there is a joint statement, it would be well and done. It's only the
If the joint statement is ready, there are no sticking points.
Okay.
But if there's no immediate joint statement, that means there are some sticking points, and one-on-one is required.
Can we just look at for a moment a couple of those sticking points? Do you believe the civil nuclear liability law still remains a sticking point? Climate change remains a major sticking point between the two countries?
I think these issues will be discussed, but I'd like to point to one issue which hasn't come up in the discussion so far, and that is the issue of counterterrorism. I think there's going to be a major meeting of the minds on counterterrorism, and I think that this whole change in the situation with the ISIS coming up and the situation in Iraq and Syria as it's evolving, and the Americans realizing how vulnerable they are, and not looking at it as a purely South Asian situation and India is vulnerable and we are not, etc. And Pakistan's complete inability to control the situation within their country as regards the fundamentalist and terrorist groups. And America's real disappointment with that. Even the drama that Pakistan just put out about so-called banning of the groups, etc., has proved to be a non-starter. I think these issues are also weighing on President Obama's mind, that he is pointing out the realignment within South Asia that is taking place.
Before you came in, Partha, this morning, we were discussing how for the first 1 hour, made an important point. What did Kerry say when he went to Islamabad? The two sides, we would like to see the two sides, i.e. India and Pakistan, come back to the dialogue table.
Process of engagement with Pakistan would be useful. That will be said, for at least for the record. But I think there is far greater recognition now of Indian concerns on terrorism, and we need to build on it.
Absolutely.
One more point. On the nuclear issue, I think on the nuclear liability bill, we have agreed on certain things. But the major point which remained is that Indian law, under the law of torts, permits people to be sued left, right and center. I think that has to be sorted out with some form
But can I come back to the terror point? You made a point, there is a greater recognition of India's concerns on terror. Do you agree with that, Kamal Mitra Chuna? Because the other view is that, look, that recognition has existed ever since the Mumbai attack in 2008.
I think Obama will understand. I think that's the difference. I think Obama understands much more what India has been facing, because the Americans have lost so many people in Afghanistan. And one of the reasons they've lost officers and other men in Afghanistan is because terror networks based inside Pakistan have crossed the border into Afghanistan and killed a lot of them.
I'm just wondering whether on the priority list in one lunch, when you've got climate change, you've got defense technology, I mean, is it any more on the top? I'm contrasting it to the Clinton visit. 14 years ago, it was right at the top. Is counter-terrorism right at the top at the moment?
The agreement is probably already worked out.
That's right.
I don't think there will be a clash or agreement on that. I think the agreement is worked out. It will be a highlight of the result of the outcome.
But it won't be on top. I think on top,
and the point
because there is no difference anymore. When Clinton came to India,
It's a new game.
But let me tell you, as said, a joint statement, because there's a growing convergence, will already have been drafted when it comes to terrorism. For what I can sense, am I right in saying that joint statement, there's two big sticking points, correct me if I'm wrong, is when it comes to climate change and America's a determination to get India to sign on in the way that they got China to sign on to emission controls, and the other one is the civil nuclear liability. On those two areas, would you agree that there are still sticking points which may not be achieved in just one lunch or one delegation level?
On two things they will have.
The clean coal technology from the USA. Are they willing to give that? Are they willing to give the clean coal technology? Are they willing to help India in overcoming this emissions control problem?
Rajdeep,
that is the
no, but clean coal they mentioned in
one by one. Yes.
I have one basic point.
Yes.
We will not agree to the Chinese formulation of setting any deadline for actual commencement of reduction of emissions.
Yes.
We are too heavily dependent on coal. What we will perhaps agree to as a SOP and take it forward till the December negotiations in Paris, because that is, for him, his contribution to history. He doesn't want that to fail. So what we will perhaps go for is an agreement for greater focus on clean energy, solar, wind and so on. But if he is expecting any ceiling the way the Chinese have done by 2030,
that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen, because we are far below Chinese levels of consumption. But I think we can reach a compromise.
Okay, let me take a break at this point. We'll go to Hyderabad House in a moment and get more reports from our reporters on ground zero. But clearly, there are sticking points and there are areas of convergence. This is a relationship which is evolving. I don't think we've really reached the stage where the two countries can claim, and I don't think they would ever like to claim that they're allies. They're friends, they're partners. And as with any partners, there are issues of convergence and there are significant issues also of divergence. We await that joint statement. We expect a joint media conference between the two leaders. We'll have to wait and see whether they take questions this time. Remember when they were in Washington a few months ago, they just read out brief statements and there were no questions that were taken. Hopefully, in India, things will be different. We're about to go to our correspondents at Hyderabad House to find out the latest in those delegation level talks, whether there will be a joint statement and how detailed that joint statement will be between the two leaders. That's what we're waiting to find out from our correspondents who are there at Hyderabad House at the moment. Remember, Moshmi is joining us there. Moshmi, you're there at Hyderabad House. What is the buzz you're getting in terms of a joint statement, in terms of the nature of the media conference? Will it just be one question each that the two leaders take, or not even that? Moshmi, can you hear me?
That's right, Rajdeep. Lot of anticipation in the air. The talks are on right now. 1 o'clock, the US President along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrive right here in Hyderabad House. The luncheon is on and the delegation level talks will follow. After that, around 3 o'clock, the President and the Prime Minister Modi are supposed to brief the media. It's a joint press statement. We are hopeful for the Indo-American relations. So we are hopeful that they would take some question and answers from us, Rajdeep.
Okay, I'm going to turn to this whole Make in India thought, which is part of the India. Narendra Modi wants to push the idea of Make in India. The Americans would want to push the idea of Made in the United States.
No, he says it. He said it always. He calls it offshoring, onshoring of jobs.
That's right.
Which have gone away.
When I look at this whole relationship, at the end of the day, business matters to the Americans. The nature of business, whether it's with defense technology, whether it's with other areas, where a smart city concept, the ability of the US to partner India in building smart cities, Visakhapatnam, Allahabad, Ajmer. Make in India, which is Modi's cry, versus America, which wants it made in the United States.
Look, there are two elements. One is the intellectual property rights. Till that is sorted out, the big corporations are asking questions whether they should bring investment because they're worried where their technology may go. Second thing is that some of it is just reframed because in the defense they've had offsets policy for over a decade. It's nothing new to have people manufacture here. But that offsets policy was seen as very onerous. So that's why many American companies didn't come in, because you had to have, say, buy $1 billion worth, they have to invest a certain amount in India, maybe not all in defense. So that will change. Some of it they may dilute and then bring it in. It will work where there are cost advantages, labor advantages, but US itself, because of shale, has energy advantages. So that's why the jobs are getting onshored. So there is a pull and a push there. It is not that easy.
Kamal, do you believe that there will be, that there needs to be, because Americans will come and say, we want greater access to your markets. That's what they've always said. Now, FDI and retail has been a sticking point in Washington 4 months ago. Apparently, that was an issue which Mr. Obama had raised about the need for India to speed up legislation to make it easier to do business in India. Is that an area where you think the Indians will have to respond at some stage? We've been we haven't, because of our legislative process, haven't been able to respond as quickly as the Americans want. And many believe the Americans will turn impatient eventually.
You know, FDI is a big issue, but the fact of the matter is that what has the state done for the development of technology? Have we been going to frontier areas of technology? We haven't. So once we haven't, then we are on a weak footing when we debate with the North about, you know, you give us this technology, you give us that. They'll say, well, what do we get in exchange? And that is why, if you see our FDI rules, it was first 25% maximum. Then it became 49. And you'll see this afternoon, for some, it's going to become 51.
You believe that it will become 51? You see announcements being made in the context of FDI on this visit itself?
Well, if they don't do it, they will give a pretty clear hint that they're thinking about it.
Rajiv, can I say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is somebody who's very closely allied to big business. And I think Indian big business, it is in Indian big business interest to also open up the market to all foreign investment, which is why when you've had all these ordinances passed on land and otherwise. So if you have Indian big business allying with American big business or otherwise, or European or Russian or whatever it is, I think that's what Make in India will be about. But you know, some of it in terms of high technology and high technology transfer, especially in sensitive technologies, I think that will depend on a trust quotient between the two countries. But in terms of big business, I think whether it's in building smart cities or cleaning up the Ganga, and so
the reason I'm asking this question is whether it's the Indian Prime Minister going to Australia, whether he goes to America, whether he goes later this year to Britain, large number of CEOs now accompany him. In fact, the largest amount of time that the US President will spend with Indian civil society, quote unquote, are with Indian businessmen. And if you look at the list of people who are there at the President banquet, apart from the bureaucrats and diplomats, there's a large number of businessmen. Sunil Mittal, Mukesh Ambani, Anil Ambani, Kiran Majumdar, Shaw, all of whom have been invited to that. I'm just wondering.
But I think Indian big business also wants to go into these countries. Indian big business is also finding that movement of labor is very difficult from India into America, although the H-1B visas has opened up much more, etc.
There are two exampple that we have before us that I think will influence what will happen. One is the example of Gujarat. And we must remember that Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi as Chief Minister attracted a very, very large number of American and Canadian companies, and they were very happy.
But how much of them actually invest? Let's be clear.
No, but what is Gujarat's record? Jean Dresse calculated that of the 20 major states in India, Gujarat is number 9. Well, the CAG says 1/3 of the children are
I'm talking of individual examples.
You're looking at now social indicators.
I'm not looking at...
I am purely looking at...
And the second point...
What I'm trying to understand is that we talk of FDI rules being relaxed. We talk about how much of this has happened. Very little.
It'll have much more will happen.
No, you're saying much more will happen in the budget.
I think they will open up retail.
You believe they will open up. It hasn't happened in the past. Mr. Modi will face pressure from within.
The BJP can't allow.
So I'm just wondering.
So Mr. Modi is so beholden to big business in India, he has to do.
But he has to please the Sangh also.
No, that's an interesting point. You're saying he has to please the Sangh, therefore he cannot be seen to be opening up to the Americans our access to the markets to the extent.
No, because traders are part of their base.
On a case-by-case basis, he will be able to do it.
I want to know, just a minute. Veena, I just want to know to what extent will all these memorandums of understanding, this hope or belief that FDI rules will be relaxed, actually translate into a growing business relationship between India and the United States, which actually hasn't happened as of date?
Because for President Obama, his constituency is also American big business.
That's exactly.
So he has to bring that American big business to India. He has to make the marriage happen. And for making the marriage happen, Prime Minister Modi's role, as bringing the American business here as bridegrooms, is very important. So I think it will happen on a case-by-case basis. You will see, for example, as we've seen, the Sun Edison in solar technology. They've for the $4 billion deal.
Yeah, but look at the levels at which we are talking about.
Trade has already grown to about $100 billion.
It has, but it still maybe hasn't grown to the extent we have. Yes.
Rajdeep, let us look at something which has happened to our country, which is disastrous.
Yes.
Post-liberalization, industry now contributes only 13% of GDP. It is ridiculous for an emerging economy to have such a low contribution by organized industry. Therefore, you have to create an environment in India for facilitating the growth of industry. Whether it is domestic or foreign is not the issue.
And then the 27th.
The growth of industry like China has done. That I think is what is happening is that many of the better administered states, particularly in the south, are taking the lead, including everything from Maharashtra down to Tamil Nadu.
Yes.
Some northern Indian states like Rajasthan are coming in. Gujarat is always there. What we are doing is creating an environment for greater facilitation of industry in the country. So that is the environment we are creating domestically. The crucial area affecting our national security is electronics.
Yes.
Even the Chinese can today jam your communications.
Yes.
And your your power grids. You have to have electronics basic manufacture in this country, which we have not done. The major contributors will be the East Asians, not the United States. But the US in certain levels of high technology, which are defense related.
China is not a model that they want to follow in India.
I await to see hard facts at the end of the day. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to businessmen, we need to see how many of them really will, American businessmen, will actually get involved in the Make in India project. Or will they
Only
really?
in high tech?
We will see. We will see, and whether we will open ourselves to those areas is what I want to see happen in the days ahead. Let's take a break, and we'll come back. There's plenty more to talk about, because remember, we only expect the press conference at about 3 p.m. today. Let's take a break. We leave you though with the latest edition as we enter that break of our award-winning satirical series. So sorry. I hope it's on Obama and Modi. Back in a moment.